Hi, my name is Bob Taylor. I'm your host for today's episode of Our Ventura TV. I'm here today with my guest, Bart Stern, and we're here today to talk about giving back to your community. Hi, Bart.
Hi, Bob. Thanks for having me.
All right, tell me a little bit about yourself, a little bit about the history of Bart Stern and, the last few years or so.
Sure. Well, my family and I have lived here in Ventura County for over 20 years and in the Camarillo area. My career's been dedicated to real estate investment, but I think the greatest experience I've really had living in this area is being involved in community events and community organizations.
You know, when I first moved to Camarillo, you were everywhere, involved in everything I was involved in, and when I approached you about being a guest on our show, I really thought you would come back with one of the local nonprofits you do now, because I know you serve on a lot of boards right now, a lot of things that have to do with taxes, real estate, and a lot of other nonprofits in the way of the community. Why did you pick the subject you picked?
Well, I think giving back to the community versus just talking about my experience with one organization is such an important topic. It both enriches our lives and those around us and really makes the difference between living in a city maybe with a nice climate and living in a great community where you know a lot of people and are really connected to what's happening. So there's so many different choices that people have to become part of the community and give back.
Well, you can tell how sincere you are about that, because you went right from living in a city to being involved in a community. And that was just a natural thing for you.
Right.
So you do know what it means you can tell you know what it means to be involved in a community instead of just working or living in a city.
Sure.
So of all the nonprofits you've been involved in, which ones do you think meant the most to you? I know they all do, but you have to have certain memories of certain things.
Sure.
Which ones stand out?
Well, I think we all go through different stages in our lives, so I've been involved in a lot of different organizations, some related to my profession, some to the community. I think some of my greatest experiences have been not the professional organizations as much as those that directly work with the community. So both kid-related organizations and community-related. The first that I was really the most connected to was the Chamber of Commerce in Camarillo, and then also the Rotary Club. And those are both organizations related to business, where business owners or leaders get together and figure out how to help their community. But with the Rotary Club in Camarillo, that's one of a big network of organizations around the world. That's a way that I became most familiar with people of different backgrounds and helping directly organizations in our community. So that's something I've always considered an important part of my life, and glad to be involved in it.
And we did a show once about Rotary. We had Mitchell Crespi in here talking about
sure.
Rotary, because he was
Great guy.
running the Rotary at the time. Mitchell was a great guy. So you think Rotary is a good one for people to start with as far as giving back to the community, or a good one to help you branch into other areas?
Well, I think it depends on who you are. The Rotary Clubs are based on a network of business leaders, so it comes from business and then based on giving back. But there's so many options, and I think it's really most important for someone to pick either an organization or an outlet that most interests them. So it could be a church, a youth sports organization, professional organizations, really whatever interests each person the most is, I think, the best way to give the highest quality service back to everyone else.
And no matter what aspect we want to pick in, there are ways of giving back, aren't there?
Right, absolutely, and there's a great need for it always.
Yes. Now, when we first started talking, you mentioned some of the presidents and stuff that have actually had not necessarily a mandate, shall we say, but have pushed the community and all over the United States actually for giving back.
Right.
Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I think it really does create such a different atmosphere, not only locally but throughout the country. There are presidents who have been both, on both sides of the aisle in terms of political affiliations, but in the inaugural addresses of both John Kennedy and the first George Bush, they both focused on giving back in community service and how it can create a better environment in the country. And of course, the more we can give locally, I think the less we have to depend on the government with programs and things too. So I think it's a healthy environment for everyone. and important.
Yeah, I sure do too. Yeah, it's hard for a government to know exactly, without making any political statement whatsoever, it's hard for a government to know exactly what's best for Camarillo as
right.
opposed to Oxnard, or as opposed to Santa
Yeah.
Paula, or even our local areas. We all have different needs.
Right.
So I think it's the more we can get involved strictly in our community projects, the better off we are.
Right.
All right, so you mentioned getting involved with kids. What kids nonprofits have you been involved with that have really been fulfilling for you?
Sure. I think initially it was through the Rotary Club in Camarillo. It gives, gosh, I think close to $100,000 a year to Casa Pacifica, which is the private, public funded organization that helps kids who come from distressed homes. And so that's something where I saw where our efforts or our funds, investment can go directly to really changing the lives of people here locally. So that was definitely the first and maybe one of the most important. And also through youth sports, I've been involved in coaching baseball and football. And though I don't think I'm the most experienced coach in the world, I think dedicating my time and getting some others to dedicate time was important to the kids who were involved.
Well, you said something, though, that you hit the nail on the head with, I may not be the most experienced, but you got to remember, the nonprofit world is run by those who show up.
Right.
So they're not looking for necessarily the best in any particular situation. They're looking for people that want to get involved, are passionate about getting involved,
Yeah.
and do show up when they're needed to be there.
Sure.
So you may not think you're the best there is, but I'm sure you do a great job out there. The kids love the fact you're there, and all the nonprofits need that. I don't believe we can be, if we look for a nonprofit that we're perfect with,
Right.
then we're never going to be involved in a nonprofit. We want to look for a nonprofit we're passionate about and we enjoy being with and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's important to understand that the people who are busiest often are those who are most productive in giving back. And I don't think any of us feel like we have a lot of time to give, but if we can carve out something, it usually is very meaningful.
You know, if somebody out there, anybody of our studio audience out there, listens to this and says, oh, geez, boy, I have an hour or two I could give a week or that kind of thing, where would be the best way for them to find different volunteer opportunities?
Well, I think if someone isn't sure where their outlet should be, there are several organizations that cover a lot of different areas and ways to give. An example is the United Way, and the United Way in Ventura County has a website where we can go and find a lot of ways to give, and they apply both funds and people's volunteer hours to many different organizations. So that could be an example, or whatever most interests each person. I think it's a little bit, it's important to be a little bit selfish and consider your own time well spent in something that interests you. So.
Right. Yeah, I think you made a real good comment when you first started. You know, there's a number of different ways to serve, whether it's volunteering at your church, whatever your religion may be or your affiliation may be, whether it's in the youth sports, whether it's in community, or whether it's professional. So everybody has an interest in something, but even following your professional career or anybody's professional career, there are still nonprofits tied up to their professional career they can get involved in.
Absolutely. And a lot of employers are very supportive of taking some time either away from work or even matching funds to various organizations. So it's important.
Yeah, and it's funny that you had mentioned that, because there's a couple of local banks that have little groups. You can call them, and they'll send a whole group out to help with your nonprofit account. In fact, we used one of the Rotaries once. They checked everybody out with gifts and everything. I remember using them. That was actually a lot of fun. We touched on Casa Pacifica too. Okay, now Casa Pacifica. Do you still involved with Casa? They're such a great group out there. I know their main headquarters is Camarillo, but they're actually all the way up the coast.
Right. Their influence really spreads over a great area. And I've never really been directly involved with Casa Pacifica, only indirectly through working with the Rotary Club in Camarillo. But I've known a lot of their directors, and they have a lot of different ways to give, and events where they need volunteers. So not only just with their programs on site or with the children they serve, but also through the events that they put on to raise money. So there are a lot of opportunities.
One that I really remember seeing you at in the past, that I know you had a really great time at, because I just remember some of those days, was Viva la Comida.
Sure.
Why don't you explain what Viva La Comida is and what Viva La
Sure.
Comida did?
Well, that's a community dinner hosted by the Rotary Clubs in Camarillo. It's been in existence for over 40 years now. And money is raised that goes to a number of primarily youth-based organizations, including the Boys and Girls Club, in the past, the Boy Scouts, and other functions of the Rotary Club. So it serves a dual purpose. Number one, to raise some funds to get out directly into the community, but also to bring people together in one place to see each other, have fun, and connect. Again, living in a city, changing that to an environment of really interconnecting and living in a community, seeing a lot of different people.
And Viva La Comida always just amazed me. Even just going through the drive-through line and picking up food or something, all the people that I see in the community that I only see once a year, but
Right.
always see at that event.
It does make a difference.
Yeah.
It makes difference, and it's great to keep those relationships strengthened so people can help each other.
Okay, now let's touch on the United Way once again. I do know that the United Way, if you can get a hold of them and just tell them what you want to work on, like
Right.
you can tell them youth, and they will give you different things you get involved in youth,
Sure.
or you could elder care, and they
Sure.
can direct you into the different things you want to get involved in.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
All right, so that's great. So they cover anything we need to in the way of the nonprofit stuff.
Right.
All right, good. All right. Okay, now we don't have an awful lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody wants to get involved, you give them a little talk about on the fence, that kind of thing. Give
Sure.
them a little passion talk about why they need to get involved with the community, more than just presidents telling us we should.
Right.
Nobody wants to listen to them
Right.
now anyway.
Sure.
But just why you think it's so important.
Well, I think we all have a duty to give what we can
Duty, good
to
word.
help others. And whether that's small or a great amount of time, it doesn't have to be time, it could be funds, your talents, your time, but something that interests each person. We do have a duty to make a difference in the community, and if there is a higher percentage of people who do, I think really could make a big difference. And we can, like you said, government through programs might not be the best way to affect locally, but maybe the people who live there.
Right, right. All right, so you anybody out there, you should start with them with their interests, either at their
Sure.
church or go to their local United Way, because there's a United Way in every city or in every
Right.
county
Right.
in the world, actually.
Sure.
And then they could go from there to any of the youth programs.
Right.
Even talk to schools.
Right.
Because schools always have either foundations or they have little baseball teams or softball teams,
Sure.
or PTAs, PTOs.
Right.
There's always those volunteer opportunities too. So,
And the kids need us.
and the kids certainly do need us, don't they?
Yeah, anything we can do to enhance kids' programs with sports, music especially. There's so many programs that through budget cuts in the public schools have been eliminated that were around when you and I were kids.
Yes.
Primarily music libraries. A lot of libraries have been eliminated from
Yes.
schools. So there's so many ways. And a growing need is to help elders as well, or the underserved medically. So two organizations I can think of, the Ventura County Medical Resource Foundation specializes in giving to people who are underserved medically, and also Camarillo Hospice is a great organization that I've been aware of and directly involved with. So
Sandy's just a great person, isn't she?
she is.
Yeah. Well, Bart, our time's run out. I really want to thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Well, you have such a great passion about your topic. It really is good to find out more and for our audience to learn about the important things that are going on. I want to thank you all for being here. My name is Bob Taylor. I have been your host today on this episode of Our Ventura TV. And we've been talking to Bart Stern today. We've been talking about giving back to your community.